Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. Today I want to talk about an update basically on the Ukraine UFO situation that was reported last month by a group of Ukrainian astronomers. There's a big stink going on Twitter right now over this, as a few different developments have occurred. First off, I guess it was a few days ago, Mick West, the biggest debunker of our age, put on Twitter that that Ukrainian UFO study, in quotes, he had study in quotes, the main astronomical observatory of the National Academy of Sciences of Ukraine is distancing itself from it, describing it at an inappropriate scientific level and with significant errors and unreasonable conclusions. And he is right about that. So, basically, last month there was a group of astronomers from Ukraine who said that there's UFOs all over the place in the skies above Kyiv and in other places in Ukraine. And now this National Academy of Sciences of Ukraine main astronomical observatory wants to distance itself from this paper that this group of astronomers had put out. And I'm going to read this. This is from their website. It says here, and this is that main astronomical observatory of the National Academy of Sciences of Ukraine, also known as Mayo NASU. And here's what they say. Information about these observations were published on the website of the Scientific Archive as a pre-publication. The observations of UAP were conducted in the test mode during scheduled meteor observations, and their results were not discussed and reviewed at the Mayo NASU. Because the paper and results have drawn a lot of attention and sometimes an inadequate reaction, we organized the Astrophysical Seminar of the Mayo NASU on September 15th, 2022, where one of the authors reported about these observations, interpretation, and argumentation why the observed events are precisely UAP. The results of the discussion were reported at the meeting of the Scientific Council of the Mayo NASU. Members of the Scientific Council came to the following conclusion. Observations conducted by this Ukrainian astronomer and his colleagues are original, but the processing and interpretation of results were performed at an inappropriate scientific level and with significant errors in determining distances to the observed objects. Also, the dates of observations are absent in the paper. The authors do not indicate which events were observed simultaneously from two sites. The authors do not provide arguments that natural phenomena or artificial objects of earthly origin may be among the observed UAP, meteors, objects carried by the wind over long distances, space debris, artifacts, etc. Instead of a critical analysis of observations, possible errors, adequacy of models, accuracy, and post-processing, the authors postulate unreasonable conclusions about the characteristics of the observed objects as UAP. The Scientific Council of the Mayo NAS of Ukraine requests the authors to update the version of the article on the website of the relevant archive with the mandatory replacement of the sentence, the main astronomical observatory of NAS of Ukraine conducts an independent study of UAP, to the phrase, the authors of this paper conduct an independent study of UAP. So basically, they don't want to have the whole organization, they don't want the whole organization to be viewed as the ones propagating this study. And then finally, the Scientific Council of the Mayo of NASU believes that the information published in the aforementioned paper was premature and did not meet the professional requirements for publication of the results of scientific research. Now, of course, last month when I talked about this during the podcast, I pointed out that yes, that this paper was incomplete. The scientific paper seemed to be incomplete, and there were a lot of different debunkers online, pretty much led by the top debunker of our age, Mick West, who said this it was junk science, basically. But my biggest issue with what West was saying, that he said that these people were perpetrating a hoax. Basically 5 minutes after reading the scientific paper, West said, "Oh, this is a hoax." That's what they're trying to claim, it was a hoax, which I thought was absolutely ridiculous. How could you come to that conclusion? You have these scientists, these astronomers who are seeing objects that they can't explain, and they release a paper about it, and they try to describe what they've had been seeing scientifically, and they're being called hoaxers. And I thought that's very problematic. I don't think that's not fair at all. Basically, considering the situation over in Ukraine right now. I mean, it's getting bombarded by Russia. But anyway, now it took another turn, this issue, when Avi Loeb, who's the Harvard professor, the astronomer, who's the head of the Galileo Project, which is an independent study of UAP, he was actually approached by Sean Kirkpatrick, the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or ARROW, director, on Monday, and asked to provide his own comments on this, his own thoughts, and which I think it's, that's very suspicious to me. That's very, very interesting. But anyway, Loeb actually sent an email to Kurt J. Mungle, who operates the Theories About Everything YouTube podcast. He has a lot of different guests on there, Kurt does, and it's a very great Theories of Everything is a very interesting channel. I recommend that to anybody who doesn't know about it. But anyway, Avi wrote this little note here to Kurt, and it says, "You might enjoy the essay and related paper below. I was reluctant to even read the Ukrainian paper, but on Monday night I was visited at home by the director of the new UAP office in D.C. and he asked me to write a short scientific paper on UAP. So yesterday morning at 4:30 a.m., before my routine morning jog, I had a look at the Ukrainian paper, and within an hour figured that they got the distance to their dark objects wrong by a factor of 10, or else there would be a huge fireball around each of them as a result of their friction with the air. After correcting that, everything falls into place with the parameters of artillery shells. There is no way out of this argument because they claim the objects are dark, meaning that they block light. The cross-section with photons implies that the objects must interact with air molecules." Now, what he's talking about here are these phantom objects. They're called phantoms by these Ukrainian astronomers. These dark objects that seem to basically draw in light. So what he's saying here, Loeb is saying that they're most likely artillery shells, and that's what they were getting. They made a mistake. Now he doesn't know for sure, right? And that these other objects, these luminous objects that the astronomers had seen, that they called cosmics, that they were most likely satellites. So that was Avi Loeb's conclusion, which he prepared on behalf of the ARROW office. So basically, the Pentagon approached him and said, "Hey, could you tell us what this is? Explain this." And so he came up with basically a prosaic explanation. Now, his prosaic explanation actually doesn't jibe with Mick West's prosaic explanation, because he said the dark objects are basically insects. That's his hypothesis. And actually, Mick West on Twitter today actually tweeted, "An issue with the alternative artillery shell Ukrainian UAP hypothesis is that the Phantom shows extreme acceleration at that scale, over 400 G if it's about 1.5 feet long." So basically you have Avi Loeb trying to debunk it and saying that they're artillery shells, and you have Mick West saying, no, these objects are flying too fast to be artillery shells, so they must be insects. But the whole bottom line is that the scientific paper actually was incomplete. That's the problem. Actually falls onto the lap of these astronomers who put this paper out, because they've been actually opened themselves up to this kind of criticism. They needed to come up with something that would be hard to criticize, which they did not, obviously. I mean, if you have someone like Avi Loeb, who I believe is sincere in his efforts to try to get to the bottom of the mystery of UAP, and he's saying that he thinks it's artillery shells, and he thinks that the other objects are satellites. Well, okay, maybe they are, but again, he's basing it on, even Loeb himself is basing it on known physics. He's only, so I mean, and the fact is, nobody's right here. You have Mick West, somebody else saying, "Oh no, they're these objects, these phantoms, they're just." He's still trying to claim that they're insects. So basically, you have two conflicting debunker theories at play here. So the bottom line is nobody really knows what they are, and you have this Ukrainian astronomy organization at the same time. They don't want to have anything to do with it because they don't want to look like fools, because I'm sure that they see that the internet too, and they see all these people on there like when this story came out last month, like I talked about, there was a lot of debunkers out there saying this is all junk science. But and at the same time, now Gary Nolan, Stanford scientist, who is really one of the probably most pro-scientific UFO minds out there right now, as everyone knows. Now he actually agrees with Avi Loeb on this, and here's some of his tweets. He wrote, this is what he wrote today. I am going to back Avi on this. If you write a paper based on data provided, get it peer reviewed, you cover all the normal explanations first. As with the Council Bluffs paper, we left speculation to the discussion where you are given leeway to give alternative possibilities. If further analysis of the current data or new data arrives, then one can write a new paper. Approach this as a discussion around facts. If there are elements of any paper that don't seem to fit the facts, science allows for collegial kibitzing. One doesn't need to invoke NWO. And then we're going to later on a guy named Joe Murgia, known as the UFO Joe, who talks about UFOs online. He says, haven't spent much time tweeting Ukrainian story except maybe a few retweets. UAP should be giving us sonic booms, but don't. Why is Avi assuming these objects would create friction? Because photons? And then somebody else, Terry Barlow, wrote, it seems strange he's drawn that conclusion based on conventional understanding of physics. So there was a lot of people that they don't like basically what Loeb is saying here, because they think that he's being he's trying to look at this from known physics. I mean, that's the issue. Here's somebody here on Twitter that Ben Lumens wrote this. Avi Loeb's new take of, quote, the data must be wrong because nothing I know of can do that, end quote, is so obviously bad that it defies belief. And he admits that he was visited at home by this new UFO office. It makes me wonder just what the F is really going on here, to be honest. And then later on he wrote, he's literally inventing problems with the data to explain it away. There's nothing to give the benefit of a doubt to. Reading between the lines, there are some national security implications for what people have been seeing in Ukraine, and he's been asked/made to pour water on it. So basically, Lumen is suggesting that the Pentagon asked him to come up with this prosaic explanation because of the war ongoing in Ukraine. And he was, other people were sticking up for Loeb on this. But again, there's a lot of pro-extraterrestrial reality folk out there who are really upset about this. Somebody else, Skeptical Believer on Twitter, wrote that he hasn't seen all the data they collected, which he even admitted. How is it in any way scientific to come to a conclusion without access to it? So basically, they're saying that because Loeb did not have all the scientific data that these Ukrainian scientists have on this issue, on these events, so how could he come to a conclusion that these objects were artillery shells? And also, Skeptical Believer also said it's literally Mick West level debunking. There's a lot of different people out there with all different points of view on this, but I guess my point of view is, who cares? I guess that's what I'm trying to get to here, right? Who cares, really? I mean, this is just one thing, one event, right? I mean, it seems like everyone wants to put all their eggs in this basket for some reason. Well, who cares? I mean, there's a lot of other things out there that we have that we should be talking about, not worrying about this whole Ukraine UFO business. I mean, obviously, like I said last month, that report, that scientific paper was incomplete, and it needed some more work. It needed some more data, and it needed these people who put that together needed to prepare something that would be hard to criticize like this. I mean, you have one debunker, Mick West, telling you that it's insects, and then I have Avi Loeb, right, telling you that it's artillery shells. Which one is it? There's a big difference between insects and artillery shells. So somebody's wrong here, right? again, there needs to be more study on this. The people responsible, though, the bottom line, are the scientists that put that paper together. They need to get together, get their heads together, and do a better job, come up with a more detailed paper here that is hard to criticize. But the bottom line is, who cares about this? It's only one little incident, right? Maybe it is artillery shells. Maybe it's insects. Maybe it's beings from another planet. Who knows, right? But the bottom line is, there's all these other events out there that have happened over the decades, right? That we should be focused on. Let's talk about the gimbal video, which like people like Mick West thinks he debunked, but he has not, right? There's a lot of things out there. There's the Tic Tac that David Fravor saw. I mean, we know there's something going on here. So why is everyone who cares what? Let these debunkers fight amongst themselves, right? But the pro UFO people out there, who cares? Who cares? I don't. It's not that big of a deal. This whole Ukraine UFO business is not that big of a deal until those scientists put a better report together, put a better paper together that explains everything a little bit better. Because what they put out there, they open themselves up to this kind of criticism, and now you got, debunker on debunker action, basically. And, I do find it funny. I will say this. I do find it funny that the Pentagon UFO office, the director of AARO, shows up at Avi Loeb's home, right, and asks him to do something with this, right? I wonder what the reasoning is behind that. That seems pretty strange to me. I mean, again, I don't know. Now, Gary Nolan on there doesn't think there's anything funny about it. I don't know. I don't know. There could be. It does seem a little strange to me at the same time. I don't know. But I don't know. But then again, I don't care. And I don't think anybody should. I don't think anybody who is interested in the subject of extraterrestrial visitation should be concerned with this Ukraine UFO story whatsoever, because it's just one little item in a sea of different items, billions of other items. So there's nothing to be worried about here, nothing to see here. Let those scientists figure things out. The ones who came up with that report themselves, let them figure things out, and then come back, right? But in the meanwhile, we have all other things we could talk about, right? We could talk about alien abductions, cattle mutilations, right? I could tell you right now, the object that I saw in 1994, that wasn't an insect, right? And it wasn't no artillery shell. It was floating around without any sound and stopped in the sky right in front of me, right? So I know that there's things out there. So why are we all going to be worried about this Ukraine report? And I don't think anybody, again, it seems to me like people who are interested in this subject, all on Twitter, are all worried about this. He's Avi Loeb. Oh boy, I can't believe he's selling us out. What are you talking about? He's given his opinion based on the physics that he knows, and I mean, he's a scientist. What do you expect, right? But as we know, these things, these objects, a lot of us know this, and there are some scientists who agree with this too, that they do defy known physics. They do think these objects do things that defy known physics all the time. I mean, traveling at ridiculous speeds, 10,000 miles an hour, stopping on a dime and then going off in a different direction, right? We all know that. We've all heard the stories. I mean, there's been all sorts of encounters, tens of thousands of encounters all across the world over decades, right? Whether it's between military or civilians or whoever, right? We have all these other reports we could be concerned about, and this, just because this might turn out to be something that is prosaic, the Ukraine business, right? That doesn't prove that doesn't disprove the reality that there's extraterrestrials coming here. That doesn't do anything to that whatsoever. But it seems like a lot of people who follow this are all upset about it, like it does. It shouldn't matter. It doesn't matter. I don't care if they turn out to be insects. Okay, put a feather in Mick West's cap. Who cares? Well, hip hip hooray for Mick West then. If it turns out to be artillery shells, then I guess Avi Loeb gets the trophy. Okay. If it turns out to be extraterrestrial beings, right? Let's see that group of astronomers who just got dismissed by their peers. Let's see them. What do you think of us now? They could go to their buddies in that Ukraine Astronomy Association and say, "Hey, we told you. We told you. What do you say now? We told you so." That's what that's all that's going to happen here. That's all that possibly could happen. So let's move on from it and forget about it. Don't worry about it, because there's a lot of other things out there. That have not been disproven and would be impossible to disprove. And we know that a lot of us actually out there already know that there's a presence on this planet that is decidedly intelligent and non-human.